All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's September 14th, 2022. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator. That means that we help companies who want to own their infrastructure to build it in record time. Along the journey, your team will get leveled up on how to build modern infrastructure with Terraform and all the design decisions that go along with it. So to hire us, just head over to cloudposse.com/quiz. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz to get started and book a call with me. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered. So feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can register for our live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, that's cloudposse.com/office hours. We host these calls every week. Our call today is recorded, and we'll automatically post a recording of our session today to our YouTube channel. So if you enjoyed that content and want to support what we do over here, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse. Again, that's youtube.com/cloudposse. All right, so let's get into some announcements. Just a reminder, if you haven't yet booked your tickets for HashiConf Global, it's happening in Los Angeles, beginning of October, October 4 through 6. I'm going to be there, and I hope to see a lot of you there if you are showing up. Just hit me up on Slack or LinkedIn and message me if you'll be going, and we'll find a time to meet up there somehow. The next announcement is something kind of scary. We're big proponents of GitHub Actions and have been using it a lot. There's an additional attack vector apparently that's been uncovered in the Google Firebase and Apache projects, but it doesn't mean that it's restricted to that. And it doesn't seem to be something new per se. It's in the usage of how the GitHub environment variable is used here. And if the contributor has already been previously approved to open pull requests and have actions automatically run against the repository, that's when this supply chain injection attack vector is possible. My understanding from skimming over it is basically it allows for easier exfiltration of the temporary GitHub token used. And then using that GitHub token, you can use you have whatever elevated rights were capable as part of that GitHub action workflow. So GitHub action workflows have permission settings and you can restrict that. Matt, have you looked into this anymore, or anyone else? Okay. So definitely something worth checking out if you're using GitHub Actions and the pattern. What's unfortunate is like the GitHub env pattern in GitHub Actions was actually a fix for what was a previous method of using output filters, whatever in your actions. You would echo set env, and that's how you used to do it. And that had a attack vector, so they deprecated that in place of the GitHub env. And to be honest, I never understood how one over the other was any safer, and it turns out it wasn't. Any questions on this one before we continue?
I think the original one, the danger was that depending on the what was set in your environment, like in the environment where it was running, it would echo the set env. So you would actually echo your tokens, where the whole idea behind the secrets one is that it just injects them without you actually having to like call that explicit echo. Yeah. So I think that was the original thing, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other vulnerabilities that came out of that, which is what we're seeing here.
So yeah, fun remains to be seen. As well, I'm pretty sure that is something that will affect more organizations. So next tool, this was via the weekly.tf newsletter, Anton Babenko's newsletter. If you haven't yet subscribed to that, that's a great source of news for Terraformers. This is a cool little tool, came up. It's a tool to, I think the diff is a little bit misleading. It's not like a diff, like the diff command. it's more like a Git diff in that sense, I guess, or like determining the affected files between any two commits, and then the implicit dependencies between those root modules. So here are two root modules, project 1 and project 2. Here are some child modules, and running the git diff command specifying a range, it will produce a list of affected projects between those two. Nothing you can do with some, shell and bash and git commands. This command is just attempting to make that easier, presumably for CICD context where you want to strategically run Terraform plan and apply on files affected. Any questions on this one? Obviously, there are limitations in what you can do with this. What I thought was interesting is it actually is doing some degree of static analysis of the Terraform itself. So it's not just a naive wrapper around git cli commands. And obviously, it's not going to handle the much harder situations of determining impacts of external data sources. For example, using the data source for Terraform remote state is frequently enough to do this. So honestly, I think this is a great first pass. For a tool like this to really work, it's going to need to do a hybrid approach. You're going to have some state file here conveying explicit dependencies between your projects, because there's only so much you can determine through static analysis and inference. Anything to add to this one? Again, that's a Terraform diff by Contentful Labs. Okay.
This looks like kind of what what's my Naros's
Atmos
Terragrunt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
Terramate. Is this is similar to what they're doing, right? Like they're building that into their tool. Yeah. So
there's a runner, whatever you want to call it, for Terraform, similar to Terragrunt, a wrapper tool called Terramate by Moneros. They're a company like Cloud Posse in Europe, and they have this tool. It has an example here where they have a command for change detection, which is nice. So they have this concept of Terramate run a Terraform plan against projects changed between two commit SHAs. So it's the same kind of concept. And Terramate might appeal to you if you are a Terragrunt user, for example, and are looking for something different. Terramate is similar to Terragrunt in that it uses HCL as an extension of HCL to define additional capabilities for your Terraform projects. It is a Terraform specific tool. All right. Any more questions on that or observations? All right. Next one is an announcement for Atmos. Anyone following Cloud Posse knows we have a tool called Atmos. It's in the same category, you could say, as for many people, it's in the same category as tools like Terragrunt or Terramate. It's actually in a different category. It's a workflow automation tool on the command line. It has predefined workflows for Terraform and Helm file, but it doesn't restrict you to using any one tool. You can use it for other things as well. So we've just added a few more things for our Terraform workflow automation. One of those new commands is this. It's the Terraform generate backends. So we've always had the command to generate the backend for any given component. What this does is generate it for every single component in your stack across all stacks. And this is part of some interesting work that we're doing at Cloud Posse on Atmos, ensuring that you are running 100% vanilla Terraform under the hood. So at any time you can break glass and never use the tool again. But if you use it, your code becomes super dry. You can reuse your Terraform root modules any number of times in any number of environments. so long as you follow some of the established conventions for how to write proper Terraform root modules that should be reusable. So if you're interested in any of that, I do encourage you to take the Cloud Posse quiz, and we can show you what that looks like. Next announcement is this. This is exciting for any publishers of Terraform modules or providers, especially if you're commercial like Cloud Posse. It's been awkward to see a bunch of Terraform modules in the registry have verified there, and yet we could never get verified because it was something a bunch of people got grandfathered into in the early days of the registry, and then there was no official way to get that seal. So I've really been peeved by that. So I'm happy to see a new official way to get verified. So now partners can register as part of the HashiCorp Technology Partner Program, which has been around for a while, but your modules or Terraform providers can now be associated with that and get a special label of partner. By default, everything will just say community and then archived for things that are deprecated or shut down. Any questions about this? Cool. Next announcement. Sharif, are you on the call today? So he shared this tool. I hadn't heard about it. I was hoping to learn a little bit more about it. Anybody know about Granted.dev? I just saw it 5 minutes before the session today, so I haven't had a chance to look into it.
I've had it on a list to look at for a while, but I haven't actually looked at it. Yeah.
I was a little bit confused because in the message he said it's like related to AWS config, and when I heard AWS config in capitals, I was thinking the AWS config service. I think he's referring to the AWS, the tilde dot slash
the CLI.
Yeah, exactly that file. I see you raising your hand, Mohammed.
Yeah, hi guys. So I did not join for a while. So
yeah,
this tool is about if you know Liab, it's the same as
same category as Liab. Okay.
Exactly, but allow you to access multiple accounts in Google Chrome or whatever. So it's basically like isolate the tabs or something. That's it.
Okay. It looks like it is just basically a browser in this sense.
It's extension in Chrome actually, so it will
extension for Chrome. Okay, so similar to some of the other switch role type of extensions.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Last announcement, Matt Gowie, I think it was posted or others as well. So it was announced earlier this year that Terraform Cloud has drift detection. I didn't realize it wasn't generally available. So this was a surprise to me. So now it is GA. And if you're using Terraform Cloud, you can have it replan your workspaces continuously or on some schedule, presumably, to detect if there's a diff in the plan and notify you if that happens. This way you have some guarantees that what you have in version control is what's been deployed. Similarly, it can help you identify if your Terraform root modules stop working, which can happen for a multitude of reasons. It can happen because you're using remote state. Remote states go away, change, disappear, change structure, so your code can't read it anymore. And you might not be pinning providers, for example, strictly enough, and changes in the provider can break a Terraform root module when you least expect it, meaning you have all this code in version control and you have no idea if it's really deployable or not. So drift detection is a must. It's also one of those things frequently overlooked by anyone using simple solutions like GitHub Actions to deploy their Terraform, Atlantis to deploy their Terraform, GitLab to deploy their Terraform. I've never seen any solution for, it's not that it can't be done. In the world of engineering, anything can be done, but I've seen anybody actually do drift detection with Atlantis. I've never seen anybody actually do drift detection with their GitHub Actions for Terraform. Mohammed, were you still raising your hand, or was that from before? Okay. Anything to add to the drift detection capabilities of Terraform Cloud? Anybody using Terraform Cloud? Just curious.
Yeah, me still using it.
Are you using a enterprise plan or business or lower?
I mean, for startup, we just start with the free tier, but
Yeah.
I mean, there is like, I'm not sure. Actually, this one is not available for everyone. So if you now create a workspace in Terraform Cloud, you cannot find this actually there. So I'm not sure actually.
So the reason, and I actually, of all people that say, yeah, I'm using it, I'm really glad you said so, because you're actually, more security conscious than most. You spend a lot of time thinking about those things. And I just cannot for the life of me understand why Terraform Cloud at any tier, even a free tier, does not support some form of IAM role trust delegation, where you can use a principal the way that Spacelift works, the way that Datadog works at every tier.
Yeah, even OpenID Connect, for example, is not yet supported, but in the Terraform Enterprise, if you are using runners, you can do the thing that you just mentioned. But
exactly. But this is just asinine, because tell everyone what you have to do, therefore, when you're not using that.
Yeah, I feel
You have to hard code administrative level AWS credentials in each workspace, right? In each where you can you share them, and can you define them once? Okay, you can at least define them once, and they're inherited.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. That's better than doing it in every single workspace, but it still becomes an exercise in credential rotation, and is not the industry standard for AWS credential handling.
Yeah, actually, they are now moving to HashiCorp Cloud. So they are integrating this UI for Terraform Cloud into HashiCorp Cloud, beside, console, vault, everything that.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, it's coming, not for me, but it's coming for some people. And there is like a big problems with the UI and stuff. So still buggy, but they are moving this for sure. I mean, they are falling behind Spacelift in zero, like these guys, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta hustle. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for them. I really want them to succeed, but I think they need to give a little bit more for the community and early adopters. And too many things are behind that enterprise gate that are fundamental, I think. For example.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly to go back to the drift detection thing. I mean, with a tool like driftctl, we mentioned that before on this office hours. You can integrate it with your GitLab, with your GitHub Actions, with Atlantis even. So it's a nice start to drift detection. I mean, you just don't need to rely on this service from HashiCorp or something.
Yeah. I mean, so driftctl is actually, so driftctl is solving the harder problem that Spacelift, Terraform Cloud, M0 are not solving, which is actually, I don't know how to say it. It's almost like a code coverage tool for infrastructure as code, where it's telling you how much of what is in AWS is covered by code in your Terraform projects and so forth. And I know it's a very lofty, ambitious implementation. I'm sure it's gotten a lot better over the past 12 months as well. We haven't had a chance to kick the tires on it yet. So that's cool. All right. So next announcement here. Yeah. So last week, our office hours was posted to our Slack channel as always, and to our podcast and everywhere else. there is somebody who is a big fan of House season 5, I think, because they stayed on the show for 3 or 4 hours or something watching it, and we got a takedown notice because in the background of office hours you could hear House. So everyone, please, yeah, mute yourselves if you're not participating, and definitely disconnect when we're done because it screws with our automation. And thank you. All right, Q&A time. I don't have many things lined up. I saw Gabriel asking, anybody upgraded to EKS 1.23? How did it go? The big question there is, you know, from what version, right? Because with every minor version, well, for EKS, you got to upgrade between every single minor version before you get to 1.23. And I believe some of those pain points were earlier in the 1.22 upgrade, for example, a lot of API deprecations and so forth. I don't have them off the top of my head. Anyone know what their experience was?
Can you hear me, guys?
Hear you faintly.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now.
I wanted to say, so yeah, I'm upgrading from 120 to 123.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's I think 123 is available only like since like 2 weeks or so, 2-3 weeks. Last month, some date, and yeah, I'm having a bit of issues with the CSI driver. Since with 123 you have to use the AWS EBS CSI driver, and yeah, so I wanted to see like if anybody else upgraded. And
are you following the general hold on, are you following the general best practices for EKS upgrades? Because there's 2 or 3 things you got to do for every EKS upgrade. First of all, in doing any EKS upgrade, we recommend running tools like Pluto by Fairwinds or Cube No Trouble, open source tools that will tell you if there's any incompatibilities as you go version to version. What's interesting about Pluto is it'll also detect Helm charts, and I'll let you know that information. The other thing is making sure you match your kubectl version with the version of the server. And the last thing that is easily forgotten is you got to update the add-ons as well. At least when this was written, as of March, add-ons were not an automatic upgrade as part of that process. I don't know if it's changed since then, but have you also proceeded to upgrade your add-ons?
I didn't have any add-ons, so yeah.
But usually you have add-ons at least for CNI and Kube Proxy usually, right?
But that's I do have core DNS, but add-ons Kube Proxy, I think that came like out of the box. I'm not sure. Yeah, but Kube Proxy definitely should be there.
Yeah, so I forget exactly.
So,
I just know that they are by default not up. Go on, Matt.
yeah, I was going to say the one that almost everyone uses is the VPC CNI add-on, because it's really hard to get around not using that.
Yeah. So we show, and these examples here are obviously related to the Cloud Posse modules and component ecosystem, so they might not help you unless you're using them. Just ideas to keep in mind.
Thanks. Yeah, regarding Pluto, I don't know what Pluto is, and Cube No Trouble. I will take a look at that.
Yeah,
sounds interesting. What I use is like KubeVal.
KubeVal.
Like, yeah, like just to check if the definitions are at least compatible of the. Yeah, but I will take a look at the other tools.
Yeah, I just posted those 2 in the office hours Slack, so check those out. Coolio. Let's see. I see some chatter in the chat. Yeah, sorry, Patrick, you had some trouble getting started. Our tutorial there is not up to date. So glad you found something with TerraSpace that works for you. Now, any other questions that we can answer? Question from Oliver. Secrets are a pain to delete and recreate. Say you delete a stack that that has AWS secrets and then recreate it, and the secrets have the same names. Any tricks? Oliver, can you give me some additional context? Because honestly, managing secrets from automation is a separate problem in and of itself. Then there are some words here you describe, I guess, maybe with conflicting secrets names, for example. I think the first problem is, how are you recreating them? Are you using something like SOP secrets and
no,
Git
can you
secrets,
guys hear
or-
me? I'm not.
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah, okay, cool. Zoom is being funny here. It's showing my background, but I'm not appearing in there. Anyways. Yeah, so the use case here, the situation is, I created a stack and there's a few modules in there, and there's AWS resources, there's secrets, there's through the AWS Secrets Manager. And in some cases, I'm just experimenting with something. So I want to destroy the stack entirely. And those secrets end up, being in a destroyed state, but that'll take, whatever, 7 days, 15 days to actually get deleted. And I want to recreate the stack right then. And so, of course, when I do that, it's the same. The only thing that's, there's just a few things that have changed in my stack that are unrelated to secrets. And for whatever reason, it was simpler to just destroy everything, except for the secrets, because when I recreate the stack now, Terraform will complain, well, that secret already exists.
Huh.
And so then I have to go through a bit of a dance to, use AWS CLI to restore each of those secrets. And then I have to use Terraform import to import each of those secrets. At that point, it'll work again. It's just a pain. So just wondering if anyone has tricks to, has a trick to deal with that.
I think similar problems will exist with different kinds of resources in AWS. We have the same problem with our EKS cluster module. The log groups that get created automatically or manually, they also linger for a while. Because you're using Terraform null label by Cloud Posse, I would just being presumptuous here. I would add an attribute that is like a pet or some random differentiator on that. And since it is just all infrastructure as code, and you can reference, resources symbolically in your code, then what the name of that secret is shouldn't really matter.
Yeah, the other thing you can do is you can, if you use the CLI, you can use, let me see if I can remember this, AWS Secrets Manager delete secret, and then it's like -- force delete without recovery or something like that. And you can actually force it to delete without waiting the 7 days before that secret is deleted.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna look it up? You don't trust my
No, I support you,
I'm
Matt.
kidding.
That's true. I support you on this one.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and that's certainly good to know. I didn't know you could force delete a secret.
Yeah, you can. Actually, what I did,
You can set
with
it to 0 here, it says.
Yeah.
To force
Oh,
delete.
I see. Okay, I hadn't noticed that. Oh, that's fine.
Yes, but when you do that, make sure you then have to apply to set it to 0 and then run destroy for it to
The first time.
the first time. Yeah, basically. Yeah,
Then there on out, if you have that enabled, it'll let you do it every time.
correct. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm saying right now, if you want to get out of the jam that you're in, you can you can run that AWS CLI command with force delete without recovery. I think that's the parameter. It might be hyphenated. Someone you check the docs, but
Yep.
it's one of those there.
That's a,
Okay.
I love it when it's an easy fix. I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, also there is
Thanks.
another workaround. I did it like with the local execute with Terraform, right? And then only when running destroy, it will run that local execute and do the command that Matt just mentioned with the /force this.
Are you using the shell provisioner then, or what are you using to do that?
Yeah, the local execute. Yeah,
exec,
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're using the local execute to call AWS CLI, secrets manager, destroy, whatever.
Yeah, but here Cloud Posse is not a big fan of local execute, I guess, right?
Yeah,
So
I was just about to say that.
I hate it with a passion if we can.
So here's the perfect example, right? Like, so it's great if you're running the code and you control everything. What happens when someone's running that on a Windows machine? What happens when they're running it and the AWS CLI isn't on the path where they ran Terraform from? What happens when there's a whole bunch of reasons why
AWS CLI 1 versus AWS CLI 2, totally different interface.
Yeah, all sorts of things.
Yeah. However, this is where most people on the show would expect, Eric, you should start talking about the AWS utils provider, which is how you work around this problem. And we just learned our lesson on that one, kind of. So I'm still a big proponent of what we've done here. So when I'm but we've learned like when to do it and not to do it. So there's this provider we created called AWS Utils. We leverage this anytime the Terraform official AWS provider doesn't do what we want it to do, we stick it in here. And we can commingle it with a module, for example, and it works, provided one of two things. You're only using one region, or you remember to add the AWS Utils provider block to your root module. And well, it turns out that people were not big proponents of that. So we had a couple modules. Oh, here's taking another step back. So be advised that problem. The other problem is you might have a module that refers to a module that refers to a module that refers to a provider, and you don't even use that functionality. You still need that provider block now. So this was what we ran into. We had a pretty simple little thing that will rotate your AWS IAM user credentials. It was provided by this provider here. We had it in a system user module. That system user module was imported by our S3 bucket module. And now anybody who uses our S3 bucket was required to add this provider block. So we appreciate all the feedback. We took that feedback internally. It took us a couple weeks of debate, but we decided just not worth the expense it cost users to do something which you should generally not even do anyways. Like if you're relying on IAM users and manually rotating credentials with Terraform, probably doing something wrong now.
Yeah, I can tell you a use case that I use daily with this provider. I mean, I'm using the delete default VPC one, right?
Okay. Yep.
And yeah, I just need to define the providers for all regions, since I need to delete all default VPCs on all regions. But yeah, I mean, it's working for me, at least instead of using instead of using like Cloud Nuke or any external tools, you can do it with Terraform.
Yep.
So that's a good use case, I guess.
Yeah, deleting default VPCs is a great use case for this. And some of you following along with the latest capabilities of Terraform and the AWS provider will know, well, it does that now for you automatically, except for it doesn't, kind of. You still need to you still have to run do an import and then an apply for it to delete for the default VPC. So it's consistent within the interface that Terraform has provided, but as an end user, it's crappy UX or DX. So
I mean, now you have an idea to extend this with the force delete secret manager.
yeah.
I think honestly, if we were going to do anything, the thing to do there would be submit an upstream PR to just make that an attribute on the secret, and then you could just say force delete like they do for S3 buckets, and then you should be able to force delete the secret through the Terraform resource. But I don't know why you can't do that currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I looked for, and yeah, but I missed that 0-day thing.
Yeah, it's on the CLI. It's just, and it's in like the API in the SDK, but just not on the Terraform resource for some reason. So if you've wanted to get into Go programming and want to submit an upstream PR, that would actually be a real easy one to do as your first one, and I'm sure they would accept that.
Oh no. Our office hours series invite expired, I guess. I gotta go update that. Linda, can you make a note of that so I don't forget it? Yeah, that's probably why attendance is down now today, because we didn't get that fixed. Thank you, Matt, for submitting that. Matt, did you figure out what you're doing with ArgoCD?
Yeah, we're doing the Terraform Helm provider to bootstrap Argo, and then I have a small component to create that I'm going to upstream soon to create Ursa roles, and then we'll kind of manage connecting the application manifest with the Ursa role manually to add it into the GitOps repos that we create.
Okay.
So there's more manual steps to it, but I want to go down that path because I really like the idea that you install Argo and then Argo manages everything in the cluster. And we'll see if I eat my words on that.
No, I mean, it's not a uncommon pattern, and that everybody who like, you have two camps, kind of, let's try and get into ArgoCD as fast as possible and worry about the rest later, and they do that. So yeah, your Ursa component, you're writing it so that it can be invoked any number of times, right? And then you would just create like a component instantiation for every Ursa role that you need.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's basically there will be a separate catalog for each chart or application that gets deployed and that needs AWS permissions, and then it just outputs the ARN of the role, and then you copy and paste that into a Kubernetes manifest, and you're off to the races. I suspect that. I was just going to say, I suspect that we'll run into some other small things that need to get stitched together, like hosted zone IDs and some specific configuration around.
Can I suggest a tweak for what you're doing?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So you highlighted the main wart of that solution, right? So the necessary evil is that, it's going to generate this in Terraform. You got to copy and paste that output now into your values for the chart you're deploying through ArgoCD. The elegant solution, it is Rube Goldberg-y, but not that bad, is modify this component to create either a config map or a secret in the namespace you will be deploying to. And then you just need to have your charts make sure they can read a value from that config map. Yeah,
that's interesting. So I've done something like that before. And I wonder, I'm thinking for a Helm values manifest, that's where these values usually end up, right? Like the EKS role ARN for an Ursa role is something you would pass as a annotation on a service account. Can the problem with Argo that sucks is that you can't use the Helm lookup function. And then having it in a config map or secret
You'd have to control.
There is benefit there. There is value there. I could definitely see doing that. But it might be that you have to like run a script to basically generate your manifests more than it's like a manual copy paste action.
Yeah. So the oversimplification on my side was it assumes you own the charts, because if you own the charts, then you can have you can look a value up from any config map or any secret, right? But if you're using an off-the-shelf chart, you can't. It's not worth the overhead to fork it and add that functionality.
Yep, definitely. We'll see how it goes. I think that there is an automation path that, you know, maybe I don't know. There's a couple things I have like rattling around my brain that I think that there's a future where we would like automate it or make it as least manual as possible. But I will, let you know how that goes.
Yeah. This looks like the one you're talking about, that the lookup.
Oh yeah, I've complained in that issue multiple times, I think.
Yep, look at that. There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no movement here.
Not that I saw. And people continue to comment, like the most recent comment. I think I'm still a watcher on this, and the most recent comment was not too long ago, and you know, they're just really making a change. And I mean, their reasoning, I think, is that they actually need Argo to have permissions in the cluster to read config maps and secrets, which they don't do by default, I think. But I don't know. Or maybe it's like a thing with, their whole thing is that they don't actually run Helm. They run Helm template, but they don't run Helm install. And they need permissions to run Helm install, which they don't by default get. I don't know. I forget what it is now. But anyway, it's a frustrating thing.
So it looks like Flux does support it, which is interesting.
I'm not surprised. It'll be interesting to see, you know, 6 months, a year from now, when there's like a proper Flux UI, because Weaveworks has thrown a lot of effort into Flux v2 and trying to make that a very like viable contender. It'll be interesting to see if, you know, there is, I don't know. Right now, I don't have an interest in using Flux because I've managed a Flux v1 cluster and I was happy with it, but Argo gives the developer experience that I want to provide to the teams that I work for. The like UI experience where they actually can, you know, click around and get a sense of things instead of understanding the 50 resource types and, you know, trying to figure out things through kubectl. But yeah, we'll see where the Flux UI lands in a bit. I think it'll be an interesting race.
What's the latest update on your journey with not control plane?
Crossplane. Yeah. I honestly haven't, you know, I've had a lot of good conversations around it. I think that it's like something I'm still very interested in, but I haven't had a client be willing to take the first bite into it. And I'm also, now that I've done, you know, I've, you know, gone a little bit further in investigations and whatnot, and the provider for Terraform, or for the provider for AWS, the Crossplane provider for AWS, it's limited. It doesn't actually, you know, it's as if it was, you know, Terraform AWS provider in the first, you know, few months, and it's so early that it's and it doesn't seem like there's enough development in my mind that I'm still excited about it, but I haven't. I'm slowly like kind of coming to a realization that it might not be the end all be all, but I still want to try it out for a real customer and get them running on it. But we'll see where it lands.
Is Is this unique to the AWS provider for Crossplane? Or is, because I mean, I would have assumed that would have been the most mature provider given the magnitude of the AWS cloud. But I would understand if that was not the case, if it was originally designed around like GKE or something.
So I think that the Upbound folks to build Crossplane, they might be more GKE folks. I actually haven't done an apples to apples comparison between the GKE provider and the AWS provider, but there's so many people who are in the Kubernetes sphere who are more they're I think they're bullish on Kubernetes in GKE or GCP because Google developed it and has had more tooling around it for a longer period of time. And I think there's, I don't know, I've heard nice things from folks who are in the GCP world, but that doesn't mean I'm going to switch.
Yeah. Oh, Mohammed, I see you're raising your hand. Is that current? Or?
Yeah, I just want to totally agree with what Matt Gowie is saying about Crossplane, but like recently I've been comparing it to AWS Cloud Controller or ECK. So ECK seems to me like, sorry?
ECK.
Yeah, AWS Cloud Controller.
It's ACK.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
that
it's
I'm familiar with. Okay. Yeah.
AWS's version of Crossplane, basically like Kubernetes manifests to manage AWS resources.
Yeah, this one has like the basic resources or services that you need, like S3 bucket, RDSs, and other stuff. And actually it integrates very well with, at least if you are trying to do like developer portal or something. So like with Kubernetes manifest, you can request RDS, S3 bucket, SNS. I just the basic stuff for any application. And actually I like it. I mean, it. If you go to the website on GitHub, go back to Google, I mean, and yeah, the second link, yeah. So on the documentation, on the left, go to the left, yeah. Go to services. So at least this list is get me up and running for almost every project, and I love it. I mean, just with application, you define the RDS for it, or S3 bucket or anything. So it's really nice, and you don't need to use any external tool. Of course,
IAM now. I didn't think they were. I thought they weren't doing it or something.
No, it's really promising, at least I think. Like, and also the only limitation that you need ATS up and running, so you can do that easily with Terraform just one time, and then take it from there with ECK or ACK or something. I'm saying it wrong, guys. So I mean,
interesting.
Yeah, it's I test that comparing to Crossplane, and like Matt said, again, it's very limited. I mean, really limited comparing to this list here. There is still services coming, so I'm following their GitHub. So a bunch of services will be coming, like released. So yeah, that solved the problem with the developer portal or something. If you have like platform team who want just to prepare the developer, just they request their own RDS without you to do that. And also I take it to the next level. So you remember the Backstage project from Spotify?
Yeah.
So now you can integrate this with the Backstage, like anyone can request the full stack, like application and database from my UI. So that's really cool. I mean, really cool.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess you can just package it all together as a chart now, right?
Yeah.
Deploy.
Yeah.
That's Hey everyone, Cloud Posse, it was nice knowing you all. We're gonna shut down our Terraform modules. We're all moving them into home sites now.
Exactly. I'm not terraforming anymore.
Yeah, so I'm just devil's advocate. I mean, this is really cool. I've wanted it for a long time. I would have been a whole lot more excited about this a year or two ago. I'm still excited about it for certain use cases. What I don't like about it is some of the other things that we've started doing and wanting to do more of is things like blue-green clusters, ephemeral clusters. And when you start using operators in this way, the Kubernetes state is now like the state of your entire AWS infrastructure or all those apps that are there. You are permanently locked in to that cluster for the duration of the life cycle of those resources that you're going to be managing. Also be advised, if you start using these kinds of patterns, even in a, like in a dev context, there's no more like Terraform destroy EKS cluster. You got to make sure you destroy everything inside that cluster, make sure all of that completes if you don't want to have a whole ton of orphaned resources laying around.
I mean, I can debate on this. Actually, for example, I deployed RDS with this one and I couldn't find it on the console. So that's strange for me. I mean, the database is there. So there is like 1 DB on like the summary, but there is no database that you can access. That's something.
No.
So that's when make
These
sure.
can't be opaque. These cannot be. They must be there. It must have been the wrong region or something else.
No, man, I'm not sure. I didn't find that.
Okay.
Also,
Well, I would really love confirmation on that because that'd be really interesting. The other really interesting thing is, what is the DR exercise? Like if you really had to move to another cluster for one reason or another, WTH, what the heck are you going to do to get there? It's part of the reason why I love, look, we are a Terraform shop. We love Terraform. There are things I'm envious about CloudFormation. Like just throw this big document over the fence, let Amazon handle it, upgrades, migrations, rollbacks, whatever. You don't get that with Terraform. But if you want to suddenly refactor anything or do other things, well, they've started making that easier, to be honest. But it used to be impossible to do that without destroying it and recreating it or things like that. So this is my concern with Kubernetes as that role.
Actually, this a tool like FluxCD or ArgoCD should solve your problem with DevOps approach. Actually, all of your Kubernetes state now is in Git, and you can deploy whatever.
Yes,
region.
that's not true though. Yes, the desired state is there, but the actual deployed state outside of your cluster is not there. That S3 bucket, yeah, there's a resource in your Git repository that represents that S3 bucket, but like, that it's been deployed or other things like that isn't. Ultimately, S3 might be a bad example because the bucket is, globally unique and identified by the bucket name, but RDS is not like that. There's an ID associated with it. You need to have that ID backed up. And okay, let me correct myself. Maybe for Flux, it might work because Flux is technically bidirectional and it can synchronize back from the cluster to version control. So you're probably correct. But for Matt Gowie and ArgoCD, I don't think we get that benefit.
I mean, a reconciliation should solve this problem for sure, which is a feature of Flux, I mean.
Yeah, of Flux. But ArgoCD, I mean, well, ArgoCD also does some form of reconciliation, but is not bidirectional. And the problem is that metadata of the ID of the resource that was created is not persisted in ArgoCD land.
I see your point, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I tested with the Flux, this ECK with Flux CD and RDS application, and it was like a great demo environment. So I cannot believe it can be done. I mean,
yeah. No. I think I stand corrected with Flux. I think that it would work with Flux. Yeah. So no, cool, very cool. Thank you for sharing the current state of ACK and that it's viable for at least evaluation.
Yeah. For what it's worth, while we were just talking, I was digging through the source code of the RDS controller just to see what it's doing under the hood, and it's definitely calling like the normal AWS like SDK API endpoints to create the cluster and everything. So you should definitely have seen like an RDS cluster like sitting in your account at that point. So if you didn't, I think you probably selected something wrong. It doesn't look like it's doing anything special or funny like under the hood.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of the hour. It's time for us to wrap up for this week, but we'll be back next week as usual. Same time, same place. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please help us out by going to youtube.com/cloudposse and subscribe. Connect with me on LinkedIn by going to linkedin.com/in/Osterman. Register anytime to book a meeting with Cloud Posse and see if we can help you out in some way with your next build out of infrastructure. Go to cloudposse.com/quiz. Again, that's cloudposse.com/quiz. Thank you all. See you all next week. Same time, same place.